Hi, and welcome to this Android video discussion on animation. When we talk about animation in Android, we're really talking about two separate processes that are similar in some ways, but very different in others. We're talking about view versus property-based animation. Well, first we're going to talk about view animation. But in Android, animation refers to moving controls or objects or some property of an object, let's say, automatically over time. And there are two types. The first type is view animation, of course, and this affects only the appearance of a view. The underlying properties, the attributes of that view, do not change over time. So what we see with view animation is, let's say we move a text view or a button or something, a label, across the screen. When it gets to the end of the animation, it doesn't remain there. It snaps back to where it really is. So in view animation, we're only animating the picture of a control, whereas in property animation, we're actually changing the properties, the attributes of an object over time. Now with property animation, we can animate any object and any property of that object. So we don't just have to deal with viewable objects or viewable properties. We can animate anything over time using property animation, and this of course is a very, very powerful tool. View animation is only confined to the visible attributes. We can rotate a view, we can change its alpha channel, we can translate, scale, do things like that, but we can't change any other property. But property animation can, once again, animate any property of any object over any period of time that we want. So why don't we use property animation all the time? Well, property animation was not introduced until much later, whereas view animation has been with us since API level 1. So we've always had the capability of doing view animation, whereas property animation, I believe, comes in about 8.3.3 rather than all the way from the beginning. However, most of what's out there in terms of the installed base of Android devices will be capable these days of property-based animation, unless somebody just has a really old phone. Let's talk about view animation in particular. View animation is a scripted form of animation, and the script that I'm talking about is actually an XML file. And this XML file is a very simple file, and we'll take a look at one here in a moment. It sits in the resource/anim folder. Now, when you look at an Android project, you're going to find out that anim is short for animation, that anim folder does not exist. You have to create it yourself. So you right-click on the resource folder and then click on the anim folder, or you click, you right-click on the resource folder and then create a new anim folder, and then you right-click on that folder, create a new XML file, and it'll ask you what kind of animation file you want. In order for all of this right-clicking to work, the name of this folder must be lowercase a-n-i-m. And then it'll know that you want to put an animation XML in there. Inside that XML, there are 4 primitive operations, and we use XML type tags to get to these operations. There are alpha, scale, translate, and rotate. So we can change the transparency, the size, the position, and the angle of any control that we want over time with view-based animation. There is also a 5th tag called set. And set, we can group, say, a translation and a rotation into one single animation. Or we can make a translate, then a rotate, using time offset that we'll talk about in the next slide. Place that in a set, and then put another set inside that. So set allows us to recurse and schedule animations that are very complex indeed. And a lot of times, what we're doing when we animate, we might want to set up a loop animation where something returns to its original position, and view-based animation is perfectly fine for this. The key is that it returns to its original position. Of course, if it's not going to return to its original position, then either at the end of the animation, we need to find out when the end of that animation is, but at the end of the animation, we need to go in and explicitly set those properties in code to catch the position that it's actually in, or we need to use property-based animation, and we'll get to that in a moment. So with set, we can actually perform some recursion. We can have sets inside of sets and things like that. So now every primitive operation, the alpha, the translate, the blah, 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 happens within a time window, and we specify that in an Android duration attribute for that entity. And this is specified in milliseconds. Within a set of animations, we can use a start offset to control the time at which the element begins. So let's say we want to do a translate and then a rotate, and we want the translate to last 500 milliseconds, and then we want the rotate to start after 500 milliseconds. Well, we would set Android duration on the translate to 500. We would set Android start offset on the rotate to 500. And that way, the translate would happen, it would happen for half a second, and then the rotation would happen because it didn't start. It had a start delay. So start offset really is a delay. So we wait for the translation to be done, and then we do the rotation. What this says is that really all of these animations start at the same time. It's just start offset says, go ahead and start the animation, but wait a certain period of time before you actually start moving stuff. That's what start offset does. Then we have other attributes, depending on whether it's a rotation or a translation or a scale or what have you, to control the starting and ending values for the animation. And these are also offsets. They're called deltas. So we have start X and Y delta, end X and Y delta, and these are, if we have a delta value of 0, that means start it wherever it is, and then and so forth. And then the activity just finds that XML file and then plays it on any view in its layout. So if you haven't already, go ahead and look at the view animation demo at this point, and you'll get a better idea of what I've been talking about here. Thank you.